Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're the show that takes a big stack of sources and, well, gives you the shortcut to really getting your head around a topic.
And today we're diving into a life that's just full of these incredible contradictions.
Exactly. I mean, picture this. A Russian prince, born into, immense privilege, who becomes a radical revolutionary.
Right, and not just that, but also a world-famous geographer and a key thinker in anarchism.
He basically critiques the very system he was born into, turned his back on empire.
And championed cooperation, a world without rulers. It's quite the story.
So today we're taking a deep dive, an in-depth exploration into Peter Kropotkin, his life, his ideas.
And his ideas, they still pop up in some pretty surprising ways, don't they?
They really do. We've got a great set of sources for you today. Biographies, bits from his big works like Mutual Aid and The Conquest of Bread.
Yeah, and some more recent analyses, too, looking at his science, his philosophy.
Our mission, then, is to unpack that journey, from prince to anarchist, explore these really revolutionary ideas about cooperation.
In nature, in society.
Yeah, and uncover some of his scientific insights that were, frankly, way ahead of their time.
We want to give you, our listener, a clear path to understanding why Kropotkin is still such a fascinating figure.
Okay, so let's kick things off. Where does this journey begin? Surprisingly, maybe, not on some street barricade, but right there, next to the Tsar.
Yeah, he started as a page de chambre, basically, like a personal attendant to the Tsar.
Yeah.
High-ranking officer, too.
And he was right there when the 1861 peasant reforms were happening, watched it unfold. Initially, the sources say he was in awe.
But that didn't last.
No, it really shifted. And what's interesting is that his radical turn wasn't just from reading books.
Right, experience seems key here. Those 5 years he spent in Siberia were absolutely crucial.
He was an aide-de-camp, then an attaché to the governor general. He saw the administration up close.
Saw the excellent intentions, as he put it.
But he concluded that centralized power, even with good intentions, just didn't work. It couldn't improve people's actual lives.
A pretty profound critique, coming from inside the system itself.
Totally. But while he's getting disillusioned, he's also making a name for himself as a scientist.
Right, the geography. He figured out the structure of the mountain ranges in Siberia, East Asia. Groundbreaking work on glaciers, too.
He even got elected president of the Geographical Society's relevant department. And get this later, when he was imprisoned in the Peter and Paul Fortress.
Yeah.
The Tsar personally approved him getting books so he could finish his report on glaciation.
Wow. So even in prison, his scientific reputation held weight. That's remarkable.
An unstoppable intellectual drive, it seems.
And it's around this time, actually just before the imprisonment, that he has this really sudden conversion experience.
To anarchism.
Exactly. 1872, he takes a trip to Western Europe, visits the Jura Federation in Switzerland.
What was that?
It was a federation of watchmakers, mostly, known for its anarchist principles and autonomy.
Okay.
And Kropotkin was, according to accounts, instantly converted. Just seeing their egalitarianism, their independence, it hit him hard.
So direct experience again. More powerful than theory.
Seems so. He actually just missed meeting Bakunin, the big-name anarchist, while he was there. But the community itself was enough.
That's fascinating. So this practical real-world example was more convincing for him than, say, years of observing the Tsar's bureaucracy.
It really seems that way. It speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially for someone so grounded in empirical observation, like a geographer.
Yeah. So did that direct observation then shape how he thought about revolution back in Russia? Did it change his plans?
Oh, absolutely. Having seen those top-down reforms fail in Siberia, it makes perfect sense that his own first political blueprint was so focused on the grassroots, decentralized control.
Right.
And you have to remember how radical that was then. It wasn't just about rejecting the Tsar, but also rejecting other revolutionaries who wanted a strong central party to lead the way. Kropotkin's vision was different.
And he jumped right in when he got back.
Didn't waste a moment. Smuggled revolutionary literature back into Russia. By November 1873, he's already drafting his first political memo.
And what was in it? The core ideas.
Pretty much the foundation of his anarcho-communism.
Yeah.
Common property, workers controlling factories, everyone sharing in physical labor based on need.
No money.
Labor vouchers instead, yeah. And importantly, he specifically rejected the Nikhaev model.
Who is in Nikhaev?
A more ruthless figure. Advocated conspiracy, violence, highly centralized revolutionary cells. Kropotkin was pushing back against that, arguing for a more open, voluntary approach.
But his own activities got him into trouble.
Big trouble. His arrest in March 1874 caused a huge scandal. This former royal attendant, decorated officer, acclaimed scientist, arrested for agitation, unthinkable for many.
Held in the Peter and Paul fortress. Grim.
And the personal cost.
Hmm.
It was immense. His own brother, Alexander, who was also radicalized, partly through Peter's influence.
What happened to him?
He was arrested too, eventually exiled to Siberia, and tragically died by suicide about a decade later.
God, that's awful. It really underscores the risks, the personal sacrifice involved.
Definitely. It wasn't just an intellectual game for him.
So, given this and his later reputation, how did this man, known for his integrity, navigate the often, let's face it, brutal world of revolutionary politics?
That's a great question. Because he wasn't just writing theory. He was known for his character. People who disagreed with him ideologically, like Henry Heinemann, still spoke of his charm, his sincerity. Stepniak Kruczynski said those qualities made him a powerful speaker. And Gerald Runkle wrote something like Kropotkin, with his scholarly and saintly ways, almost brought respectability to the movement.
So he lived his principles.
Seems that way. Which raises the question of how someone like that fits into revolutionary movements that can sometimes demand, well, less saintly actions. His focus was always on the ethical foundation.
And he kept up the activism, didn't he, after escaping Russia?
Oh, intensely. Mostly in Western Europe between 78 and 86. But it wasn't easy. Switzerland kicked him out in 81 for denouncing Russian executions too loudly.
Ended up in London for a bit.
Yeah, what he called his year of real exile. Famously said he preferred a French prison to London at that time. Found it isolating, I think.
But he kept writing, agitating.
Absolutely. Contributed prolifically to anarchist papers like Freedom and La Revolte.
And his final years back in Russia after the revolution?
They were difficult. Harsh conditions made it hard for him to finish his big work on ethics. But he didn't just retreat.
Yeah.
He got involved in village life where he lived near Moscow.
Yeah.
Started a local museum, took part in the Dimitrov cooperative. Still practicing mutual aid.
Right to the end.
Yeah. He died of pneumonia in 1921. His family refused a state funeral from the Bolsheviks.
And his actual funeral.
It became the last major public anarchist demonstration allowed in Russia. Shortly after, his writings were suppressed. A really poignant end.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about mutual aid. This is probably his most famous work, right? And it really goes against the grain of how evolution was being understood at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He directly challenged that dominant interpretation of Darwinism. The whole nature red in tooth and claw, the pitiless inner war within species.
Yeah.
Kropotkin saw something else going on.
What was his core argument?
In Mutual Aid, published 1902, he basically says, look, mutual aid is just as much a law of animal life as mutual struggle.
Okay.
But, he argued, as a factor in evolution, cooperation is probably more important.
More important than competition.
That's what he claimed. He observed that animals that develop cooperative habits, mutual aid, they have better chances to survive. And, crucially, they often reach the highest levels of intelligence and physical development within their class.
Interesting. Was he drawing just on Darwin or other influences too?
He was definitely influenced by Russian scientists like the zoologist Kessler, who were already emphasizing cooperation, especially in harsh environments like Siberia, where working together against the climate was obviously key.
Right. The environment itself demanded cooperation.
Yeah.
So what kind of evidence did he use? What did he actually see?
Well, this is where his background as a field scientist shines. He wasn't just theorizing. He drew on tons of direct observation in their natural habitats, not labs.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, so he talks about burying beetles. They meticulously cooperate to bury a corpse to lay their eggs in. And, get this, the tiny mites they carry actually help out by eating the eggs of rival flies.
Wow, a multi-species team effort.
Exactly. Then there are ants. He marveled at their mutual aid within the community, their self-devotion grown into a habit, even self-sacrifice. No internal competition, he argued. Their strength came from collective support.
Okay.
He saw pelicans fishing together in these smart, coordinated half-circles, sparrows sharing food, even birds we think of as aggressive, like kites chasing eagles for prey.
Yeah.
He noted they never fought among themselves over the stolen food, and small birds like lapwings banding together to bravely drive off much larger birds of prey. Their courage grew with their numbers.
It paints a very different picture of nature than the usual one. Less conflict, more collaboration.
Definitely. And he argued it wasn't just about survival tactics either. He talked about sociability.
What did he mean by that?
Just the basic need of the animal, of associating with its like, the love of society for society's sake. He saw it in animals playing, wrestling, chattering, a kind of joy in being together that wasn't purely about utility.
So social bonds themselves are a driving force.
That was his view, a pervasive feature, from ants right up to mammals.
So taking that from the animal kingdom, how did he apply it to humans, especially early humans? He pushed back against the Hobbesian idea, right?
Hard. That idea of primitive life being a continual free fight, as T.H. Huxley put it, Kropotkin said the evidence just didn't support it.
What evidence?
Ethnology, paleoethnology, the study of early human cultures. He argued it showed humans lived in societies, tribes, bands, right from the start, much like other social mammals. The group, not the isolated family, was the earliest form.
Did he have specific examples here, too?
Oh, yeah. He talked about groups like the Bushmen living in small, federated tribes, hunting together, sharing the spoils without fighting, taking care of their wounded, apparently showing real gratitude for kindness shown to them.
Okay.
Or the Aleuts, with their strong moral code against greed. If someone was greedy, others would pointedly give their share to that person, shaming them into generosity.
That's quite a social mechanism.
Isn't it? And even practices that seem harsh to us, like infanticide or abandoning the elderly.
Yeah, those are often used as examples of primitive brutality.
Kropotkin interpreted them differently. He saw them often as tragic necessities born of sheer pressure, extreme hardship, where the survival of the tribe was paramount. Acts of obligation, not malice, which stopped when conditions got better.
So it forces you to reconsider the motives behind those actions.
Exactly. And connecting all this back, he believed our deepest ethical feelings, our morality, comes directly from this long history of mutual aid.
Evolved right alongside us.
Continuously evolving from animals through human development. He flat out stated, mutual aid is the real foundation of our ethical conceptions. He even thought new religions often just reaffirmed this core principle when societies became too centralized and hierarchical, losing that connection.
It really makes you think about where our sense of right and wrong comes from. Maybe it's less about divine rules and more about, well, evolved cooperation.
That was certainly Kropotkin's perspective, a naturalistic basis for ethics.
Okay, so he observes cooperation everywhere, argues it's fundamental to evolution and morality. How does he translate that into a political vision? Anarcho-communism. Now, anarchism, that word carries a lot of baggage for people. Chaos, disorder.
Right, and that's a common misconception he directly fought against. For Kropotkin, anarchism wasn't chaos. It was a different kind of order. An order based on voluntary agreement, on cooperation, not on centralized authority and coercion.
So how did he critique the existing systems?
He hit hard against both feudalism and capitalism, obviously. Saw them as creating poverty, artificial scarcity, protecting privilege. Standard socialist critique there, perhaps.
But he didn't stop there.
No, crucially, he was just as critical of state socialism. He argued that any central authority, didn't matter if it was a king, a parliament, or even a revolutionary committee, was fundamentally incompatible with a true social revolution aiming for liberation.
Why incompatible?
He had this famous line, revolution and government are incompatible. One must destroy the other. His core belief was that nothing good or durable can be done except by the free initiative of the people.
And governments suppress that initiative?
By their very nature, he argued. Governments always tend to destroy free initiative. He saw the state fundamentally as a tool for one class to maintain power over another. So you couldn't use that same tool to free the working class.
So his conclusion?
You had to abolish both private property and the state together. One couldn't really go without the other, in his view.
Okay, abolish the state, abolish private property. That leaves a pretty big vacuum. What fills it? What was his alternative?
His alternative was, well, complex, but rooted in that idea of mutual aid. A decentralized economic system. Voluntary cooperation.
How would that work practically?
Common ownership of resources and means of production. Factories run by the workers themselves. People sharing physical labor based on what society needed.
And the money thing again?
Labor vouchers, not currency, to track contributions and needs, at least transitionally perhaps. He envisioned society organizing through what he called a double federation.
Double federation?
Yeah, so you'd have territorial units like streets, neighborhoods, districts federating together, and then also federations based on profession or trade guilds, syndicates. All voluntary, all self-governing, aiming for liberty and peace.
Did he have any models for this? Examples?
He looked back, surprisingly perhaps, to medieval cities. He saw them in their prime as successful federations that really valued labor and collective well-being.
And then evil cities, like castles and kings.
Before they became too centralized, yes. He pointed to examples like Amiens in France, where the city would communally buy salt and distribute it at cost price to everyone.
Mm.
Or Kilkenny in Ireland, 1367, where prices for goods weren't just set by merchants, but agreed upon under oath by merchants, sailors, and the mayor. A real communal approach to the economy.
Okay, interesting examples.
He even argued the great cathedrals weren't just designed by one genius architect, but were products of collective craft guilds, where all the city contributed.
A collective genius.
Exactly. But he didn't just look to the past. He saw mutual aid happening all around him in his own time.
Where?
Obvious places like strikes and trade unions. He admired the colossal amount of work and solidarity there. But also things like cycling clubs, sports societies, even just neighbors helping each other out informally.
Everyday cooperation.
Yeah, he saw these as proof that society is a living, evolving organism. People naturally form associations to meet needs without waiting for government instructions. It just happens.
And this connects to how people should live, practically. Farming, technology.
Definitely. He was a big advocate for what we now call sustainable living. Organic market gardens, horticulture, right in and around towns and villages.
Local food.
Very much so. Cooperative, intensive agriculture, using microclimates, recycling urban waste. He actually praised Chinese and Japanese methods for using sewage as fertilizer, stuff we lose.
Ahead of his time there, too. What about energy? Industry.
He explored renewables, solar, wind, water power. He thought technology could actually reduce the need for huge, centralized cities.
So decentralization again, but not isolation.
Crucially, no. His vision was anarcho-federalism. Think of it as interconnected self-governing communities. Power flows from the bottom up. Local autonomy is key.
He had that quote, didn't he? Variety, conflict even, is life.
And that uniformity is death.
Yeah. He wanted a dynamic system. But interestingly, he wasn't keen on small, isolated communes trying to be perfect utopias. He found them kind of obnoxious, maybe a bit egotistical, and doomed to fail. He wanted system-wide change. Right, interconnectedness was vital. Okay, let's move to his scientific work again, because it's really striking how interconnected his scientific observations and his social theories were.
It's remarkable, isn't it? And how much of his science was just so prescient, way ahead of the curve.
Like his work on climate change.
Well, specifically on glaciation. He pioneered studying how glaciers had shaped Asia, a view he said he held till lately alone. People weren't really thinking about past ice ages in that region then.
And the mountains.
Yeah, his theory about mountain formation, not forces pushing up from below, but this immense lateral force, like plates colliding.
Sounds like plate tectonic.
Pretty much decades before it was widely accepted. He also had this dynamic view of the cosmos, saw nebulae as living, constantly changing, much faster than people thought, rejected static, fixed order.
Instability, the hallmark of a living system.
That was his phrase, and that dynamic view permeated his ecological thinking too.
So how does that connect to ecology today? What did he anticipate?
Well, he basically anticipated what scientists now call non-equilibrium ecology. He pushed back against the idea that ecosystems always reach a stable climax state.
Like a mature forest being the end goal.
Right. He pointed out that suppressing natural processes like forest fires wasn't always good. It led to fuel building up, causing much bigger catastrophic fires later.
A lesson we've definitely learned the hard way.
Sadly, yes. He also didn't like the metaphor of society or an ecosystem as a single organism, which was popular with some ecologists then.
Why not?
He felt it implied too much central control, like a brain directing everything. He preferred thinking of the biosphere as a supersystem, a complex web of relationships. Things operate in radically decentralized ways. Very modern sounding.
It really is. But what about the mechanism of evolution itself? You mentioned he challenged Darwinism, or at least its interpretation. Didn't he also favor ideas like the inheritance of acquired characteristics? Lamarckian ideas?
He did, yeah. He talked about the direct action of environment shaping organisms and those changes being passed on. Ideas that were largely dismissed by mainstream biology for most of the 20th century, which focused heavily on random mutation and natural selection.
So, was he just wrong on that?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Recent discoveries in epigenetics and the whole concept of the fluid genome suggest Kropotkin might have been on to something profound.
Epigenetics, fluid genome. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Epigenetics studies how environmental factors can switch genes on or off, changing how an organism develops without altering the underlying DNA sequence. And the fluid genome idea suggests that genomes aren't static blueprints. They can change, sometimes rapidly, in response to challenges like viral attacks or environmental stress.
So experience can influence inheritance, in a way.
In a way, yes. It allows for much greater plasticity, faster adaptation than just waiting for random mutations. Kropotkin seemed to intuitively grasp this potential for environmentally driven change decades, even a century, before we had the tools to see it.
That's incredible. He was basically thinking about genes talking back to the environment.
Kind of, yeah. And he was also fascinated by symbiosis organisms living together. He noted organelles inside our cells, like mitochondria, were likely once independent organisms.
Which aligns with modern endosymbiotic theory.
Exactly. The idea that complex cells evolved through partnerships, through mutualism, cooperation at the deepest biological level. He even pointed out how crucial gut microbes are for herbivores. They digest food the animal couldn't otherwise. A clear case of mutual aid bypassing slow genetic change.
Wow, so cooperation wasn't just a social preference for him. He saw it baked into the fabric of life itself.
Absolutely. And this ties into another key concept he grasped, self-organization.
How things create order without a leader.
Precisely. Think about those computer simulations of bird flocks Boyd's. Each bird follows a few simple local rules. Don't bump into neighbors, match their speed, steer towards the center. And out of those simple rules, incredibly complex, lifelike flocking behavior just emerges. No leader bird coordinating at all. Kropotkin saw this principle at work everywhere.
Challenging that top-down hierarchical view of the world.
Completely. It suggests complexity can arise from the bottom up. Systems organizing themselves without some master plan. A very different way of seeing how the world works, from ecosystems to potentially human societies.
Did he see evolution itself as having a direction then? Given this focus on cooperation leading to complexity?
That's debatable. Someone like Stephen Jay Gould famously argued against seeing progress in evolution. But Kropotkin, yeah, he did seem to see, maybe like some modern mathematicians do, a kind of progressive trend.
Towards what?
Towards greater complexity, driven by what you could call mega-evolutionary social revolutions, like the jump to multicellular life or developing social groups with culture. Each stage, built on cooperation, enables the next level.
So sociality in all its forms, symbiosis, mutualism, is the engine driving evolution towards complexity.
That was his argument. Cooperation isn't just a nice strategy. It's potentially the fundamental force pushing life forward.
So wrapping this all up, we've journeyed with Peter Kropotkin from Russian aristocracy through Siberian prisons to the heart of anarchist thought and groundbreaking science.
A prince who saw cooperation, not competition, as the key, weaving together nature, history, social dynamics into this really radical vision.
Based on decentralization, mutual aid, but also, remarkably, on scientific insights that were decades ahead of their time, from glaciers to epigenetics.
He wasn't just a political thinker. He was a true polymath. His science informed his social philosophy, and vice versa.
And these ideas, mutual aid, fluid genome, self-organization, dynamic ecosystems, they don't just feel historical, do they?
Not at all. They still challenge how we think today. They offer frameworks for tackling our current messes, from climate change to social inequality. He really believed in that core of mutual support, that nucleus that holds people together.
It leaves us with a picture of a thinker who saw dynamic change and cooperation as just fundamental to life, whether it's ants, early humans, or where we might go next.
His whole life's work suggests progress isn't just about lone geniuses or ruthless competition. It's about mutual aid and close intercourse, as he put it.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener. Kropotkin's world, and ours, is still wrestling with competition, with concentrated power, with a fragile environment. So the question is, where do you see those quieter, maybe overlooked forces of mutual aid still at work in our world today?
And maybe more importantly, how might recognizing them, valuing them, help shift our future towards something more resilient, more cooperative, and maybe more aligned with the dynamic diversity Kropotkin saw everywhere?
Something to think about. That's all for this deep dive.